of Tampa. I actually see a running team that can burn you over the top. Last week, I thought they completely abandoned the run. Drew, have you ever been in a situation where you actually went to a coach and said, we don't run it enough. We're losing our identity. I mean, is that something quarterbacks do?
Well, not generally. I mean, we're still a little bit selfish. First of all, thanks, Joy, for the shout out to the pocket passers. I feel like we're kind of dinosaurs these days, so I really appreciate that. There are times, when now I was always with defensive head coaches. So I was with Parcells and I was with Pete Carroll and I was with Belichick. They all love to run the ball and play defense. So I was always on the opposite side. Say, hey, come on, let me throw a little bit. But when you've got a guy like we had Curtis Martin for a little while, like why not hand it to that guy? That works pretty good, right? And then there are times when you look at it, you're like, okay, hey, look, this is working. Let's go with it. And then there are other times you're like, hey, this one ain't working. Let me throw it to Ben Coates a few times.
Yeah, when I look at Tampa's personnel, I think they have underrated backs, and I think their offensive line, their center and their right tackle are more road graders than pass protectors. So that's just kind of my opinion. So when I watched Kyler Murray and Tua play this week, and I've got to be honest with you, that's the most fun I've had watching a football game all year. And I had reservations about Tua. I did. He's not very big. He doesn't have a huge arm, and he's got some wiggle, but not a ton. Were you surprised at all that his college game appears to translate very well to professional football?
Well, no, he played college football at Alabama, Colin. I mean, so it wasn't, it's not like he was going from, Alcorn State into the NFL. He was playing at Alabama, which is about as close as you can get to an NFL team. But I watched him play in college, and there are a few things I look for when I watch quarterbacks. Number one is how accurate are they? And a lot of times at these top schools, that accuracy can be hidden because guys are wide open. They got a lot of time, but I watched Tua play, and he was hitting guys right here a lot.
Yeah.
And so that part is huge. But then you look at the way that he sees the field, and he doesn't. A lot of times you watch a college quarterback, they'll lock onto a guy. They go zone read, and then they're going to throw it to that guy, or they're going to run it. Well, I watched Tua's eyes in college, and he's seeing the entire field, and so that really was not a surprise to me that his game was able to translate that quickly into the NFL game.
Yeah. What do you make of Kyler Murray, who's probably the opposite of you in terms of what you did? But I will say this. These baseball guys, I think he throws an absolutely beautiful football. And even though he may play differently from you, what do you see with Kyler?
Well, first of all, I'm offended, Colin. I mean, I was pretty explosive. No, I love Kyler's game. And first of all, he's got that athletic ability that is complete and utter mystery to me. But as a pocket passer, I look at this guy, man, he throws it really, really nice. He throws it really accurately. He's got plenty of arm strength. And he also seems to see the field and throw it on time really well. So I'm a huge fan of this kid's game, man. I really, really am. But, I think Steve Young has said it many, many times. He didn't learn to be a great quarterback until he learned to work from the pocket first, and then, pull it down and make those plays with his legs. And Kyler's showing the ability to do both. I think he's got a huge future, and he's really fun to watch.
Drew, it's interesting. Aaron Rodgers been banged up a little bit. Eli Manning never got hurt. Aaron Rodgers hurt. Favre never was. Garoppolo hurt. Joe Montana not as often. Is it genetics? Is it luck? Is there a reason Brady and Eli and Favre, they just don't get hurt? And then some guys are hurt a lot. Because I sit here and I watch it. If I ran a football team and I'd think, I'm about done with Garoppolo's injuries. Is he fragile? Is it his fault? Like, you played in this league for a decade and a half. Were there guys, Drew, that they just have high ankle sprains easier than you got them?
Yeah, it seems like there are some guys that just seem to be overly susceptible. Part of that is just luck, as you indicated. Some of it's genetics. And then there's another component to it. Russell Wilson, who I know you love and I love. You watch the way that he plays, you don't see him get hit hard. He protects himself. Carson Wentz is sort of the opposite. He's a big, strong, athletic dude, but man, he gets hit hard a lot. And so there's also that kind of component of protecting yourself and understanding that the best ability is availability, and not allowing yourself to get hit hard. And I think some of these guys have to learn that.
You made 4 playoff appearances just as a Patriots quarterback, and I've always believed that football, November football on, it's almost a different league. September, October, it's sunny, there's no wind, you can get away with an average arm. Now you can't. Now you got to throw the ball through crappy weather, and the strong arm guys, the guys that can, the Favres, that's you had a big arm. So when take me to how the game for you changed as you moved toward Thanksgiving. Did you prepare differently? Were there throws you wouldn't make? How did you change mid-season going forward? Because you're going to play in snow now at some point for some of these guys.
Well, first of all, when I got to Buffalo, anytime Jim Kelly and I were down around Dan Marino, we'd be like, dude, you threw the ball in Miami. How easy is that? Come throw the ball in Buffalo in November and December. And then talk to me about all your passing yards, Danny. I hope you're out there listening, bud. But yeah, it does change. It becomes more about ball security. It becomes about field position. You have to understand as a quarterback that some of those chances that you might have taken earlier in the season when the weather was better, you're not going to take. And then you also take, like in Buffalo, for example, now you got wind, you got some wet. And so, it makes it really hard as a quarterback because if it's windy, you generally just throw it harder and you can cut it through the wind. But if it's wet, you got to throw it softer so you guys can catch it. Well, if it's windy and wet, now you're really in a predicament. So then you just have to come back to just protecting the football and hoping that you can play some field position and win it at the end.
By the way, you're one of the 2 or 3 great quarterbacks in the history of the Pac-12. You also coach high school football in Bend, Oregon, so you know the Ducks very well. Justin Herbert, to me, has been shocking. Joe Burrow, we knew could play and would have to. What do you make of Herbert? To me, he may have the 2nd or 3rd best arm in the league. He's a 4-point biology mate. I watched that kid play, and I am like, I thought he would be good. I am shocked how good he is.
Well, I think you got to go dig into the archives, Colin, because I think we talked about these quarterbacks last year, and I'm pretty sure I predicted that Herbert was going to be awfully good. I watched him play out here a lot. I was not a big fan of what the Ducks did with him. Offensively, I really felt like it was at a lot of times that they wasted his abilities and his talents in their Ducks offense. But when I watched him, it's like we talked about earlier. I watched the throws that he made. A lot of times he's throwing to guys that were really tightly covered, but he's putting the ball in the right place. Tons of velocity. And then he has that added element. He's an athlete, too. You saw in the Rose Bowl last year. He basically won that game with his legs. So I'm really, really happy for him. Everything I know about him, he's a great kid. In spite of the fact that he played for the Ducks, I'm really cheering for him. And I think he's in a good situation. I think that the Chargers are set up to put some guys around him, which ultimately that's going to determine his ceiling.
By the way, Doubleback Winery, are you at your winery right now?
I'm actually not today. I was up there just a couple days ago. We've been doing a bunch of virtual wine tasting. So if you ever want to do a virtual wine tasting, Colin, I'm your man.
Doubleback, is it doubleback.com? Is that the site?
Doubleback.com. That's the site, man. Thank you.
You bet. Good seeing you, Drew.
Thanks, Colin. Talk to you soon, bud.
You bet. Drew's probably, in my lifetime, Warren Moon and Drew Bledsoe are probably the best Pac-12 quarterbacks of all time. Just